3 days after we buried my wife, my daughter handed me an envelope and told me I had until Sunday to leave. Sunday. I remember staring at the word written in black ink across the top of the page like it was a court sentence. My name is Richard Hale. I'm 71 years old, and the only child I ever raised looked at me like I was an inconvenience. Her name is Claire. And that morning, standing in the hallway of the house I built with my own hands 42 years ago, she said something I will never forget. "Dad, Mom made changes. The house is legally mine now." I thought I misheard her. My wife Margaret and I had updated our estate documents 3 years ago. Everything was clear. If she passed first, the house stayed with me. Claire inherited after I was gone. Simple, clean, fair. But Claire stood there holding paperwork from a firm I didn't recognize. And behind her, her husband, Daniel, watched me like I was already removed from the property.
Even at the funeral, something felt off. Margaret had been sick, heart complications, but stable. Doctors said she could live another decade if she stayed consistent with medication. But 3 months before she died, she declined rapidly. Fatigue, dizziness, memory fog. Claire and Daniel had moved in to help. They insisted on managing her medications. At the time, I thought they were being responsible. Now I know better. At the service, Claire barely looked at me. Daniel kept whispering in her ear. Their attorney, someone I had never met, read the will quickly, like he didn't want questions. I didn't argue. I was grieving. That was my mistake.
When Claire gave me 72 hours, I packed a suitcase and drove to the edge of town. The Pinecrest Inn, $56 a night. Thin walls, stale carpet, a flickering lamp beside the bed. I sat there staring at my phone, scrolling through old photos of Margaret tending to her roses in the backyard. She loved that garden. She loved that house. She would never have thrown me out of it. Never. That's when I remembered something. The storage locker. Margaret rented one 12 years ago. She said it was for family archives and documents she didn't trust keeping in the house. She never let Claire near it.
The key was still on her old keychain. Storage Facility, Unit 318. When I opened the metal door, dust drifted in the air like memory itself. Old photo albums, boxes labeled taxes 1999 to 2005, her sewing machine. And then I saw it, a small steel case, brand new. On top of it was a note in Margaret's handwriting. "Richard, if you're reading this alone, then something has happened faster than I expected. Please don't panic. Listen carefully. Everything you need is inside. I love you." My hands shook. The lock opened with our anniversary date. Inside was a portable hard drive, a digital recorder, a leather notebook, and a sticky note that said, "Start with file 01. Her voice filled the empty storage unit. "Richard, if you're hearing this, I'm gone." I dropped into the folding chair beside me. "I didn't tell you sooner because I needed proof. I needed certainty. 3 months ago, I overheard Claire and Daniel arguing in the kitchen." She paused. "Daniel said we were sitting on nearly $2 million in property equity. Claire said she couldn't wait anymore." My stomach turned. They discussed accelerating inheritance. Accelerating. That word hit differently. "They've been researching medication interactions, Richard. I checked Claire's laptop when she left it open. She's been looking up cardiac stress responses." I stopped the recording. I couldn't breathe, but I forced myself to press play again. "I began replacing my medication with vitamins. I needed to see if they would alter anything."
My heart slammed against my ribs. She had tested them.
Margaret had documented everything. Dates, conversations, behavioral changes. She wrote about Daniel insisting on organizing her pills, about Claire offering herbal supplements she never used before, about arguments between them when they thought she couldn't hear. Then came File 23.
Daniel suggested lowering the beta blocker dose gradually. He said sudden withdrawal could mimic natural decline. My vision blurred. "They think I'm not listening," she coughed in the recording. "I'm getting weaker, but I need evidence, Richard. I can't accuse them without proof." She was sacrificing her own health to catch them. File 41 explained everything. She had met with our original attorney, Martin Wells, before he retired. They drafted a legitimate will that kept everything in my name. Then, without telling me, she worked with a second firm to create a falsified version, one that gave Claire immediate control. It was bait. If Claire presented that version, it would confirm intent. Margaret left a sealed envelope labeled, "For law enforcement only." Inside were screenshots of Claire's search history, bank transfers to the new law firm, a recorded conversation between Claire and Daniel discussing timing. Timing. They were waiting. File 78 nearly destroyed me. "I collapsed today," Margaret said weakly. "I haven't taken my real medication in 6 weeks." She was intentionally letting her condition worsen to prove interference. "If I survive, we go to the police. If I don't, Richard, you'll finish this." Her breathing sounded shallow. "I'm sorry for not telling you, but I needed you safe. If they suspected I knew, they might turn on you next." File 91. 2 days before she died. "Richard, if you're hearing this, then they used the false will." Silence. "They underestimated me." Her voice trembled. "Take everything to Detective Aria Monroe. She owes me a favor." Aria Monroe. That name pulled a memory. Margaret once helped a domestic abuse victim who turned out to be Monroe's sister. She had connections. "My love," Margaret whispered, "they think they're clever, but greed always leaves fingerprints." The recording ended. I sat in that storage unit for hours. My wife had orchestrated her own death as a legal trap, and I had been too blind with grief to see it. Detective Aria Monroe listened to 10 files before she stood up. "We're opening a criminal investigation." They seized medical records. Forensic toxicologists examined pill bottles. There were inconsistencies. Pill counts didn't match prescription timelines. Claire and Daniel had been adjusting dosages without physician approval. The false will had been signed under questionable witness circumstances. Bank records showed Claire transferring large sums to the new law firm before Margaret's death. They thought they were clever, but Margaret had been meticulous. 3 weeks later, police arrested Claire and Daniel on charges of attempted homicide, fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of an elderly adult. When they took Claire away in handcuffs, she looked at me. And for a moment, I saw the little girl who once held my hand crossing the street. Then, it was gone. The prosecution played selected recordings in court. Margaret's voice filled the courtroom. Claire cried when she heard File 23. Daniel stared straight ahead. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all major charges. Claire received 18 years. Daniel received 22. The fraudulent will was voided. Ownership of the house returned to me. After the trial, Detective Monroe handed me something unexpected. "There's one more file," she said. Margaret had left a sealed recording marked "After Justice." I waited a month before listening. "Richard," she said softly, "if this plays, then you did it. You finished what I started." She paused. I don't regret what I did. I regret that I couldn't trust our own child. Her breathing was weak. But don't let this harden you. Don't let betrayal define the rest of your life. She laughed faintly. You once told me you wanted to retire by the lake and build a little woodworking shop. I smiled through tears. Do that. Live. Love. Help someone. Then she said something that shattered me. I didn't choose to die. I chose to expose them. I miscalculated the damage. It wasn't martyrdom. It was a risk that went too far. Promise me you'll forgive her someday. Not for her sake. For yours. The recording ended. I sold the house. I couldn't walk those hallways anymore. The sale closed at $1.8 million. I used a portion of the money to create the Margaret Hale Initiative for Elder Protection. We fund investigations into financial abuse within families. We've helped 62 seniors in 2 years. Margaret's sacrifice continues to protect others. She wrote me once from prison, a 4-page letter. No apology, just justification, blaming Daniel, blaming debt, blaming pressure. But nowhere did she blame greed. I haven't responded. Not yet. Maybe one day. I live in a small lakeside cabin. I built that woodworking shop. Every June 12th, our anniversary, I sit on the dock with a glass of wine, and I listen to Recording 01. Not because I enjoy the pain, but because her voice reminds me of something important. Love can be protective, but it can also be dangerous when it sacrifices too much. Margaret didn't die weak, she died strategic. And in doing so, she exposed something darker than inheritance. She exposed how far entitlement can go when it believes it deserves everything. People ask if I regret opening that storage locker. No, because inside that metal box wasn't just evidence. It was proof that even in betrayal, Margaret chose to protect me. And that kind of love, it doesn't disappear. It echoes. In 91 files. Forever.